Alright, I think everything is set up correctly now. Okay, YouTube says I'm live. Let's see. Okay, I can hear my voice. Everything's fine. So I'm gonna close this tab now. Let me just set some few things up, so I don't have to keep this open. Okay. All right. Um, Hello. As you might be able to hear, I'm not really um fit yet. I'm still a little bit sick, but I'm trying my best to show this to you guys. So, um, the focus of today's stream is going to be writing our own mod for the Genesis project based on MonaMod as the patching framework. Um, so to start with that, let's clarify what is MonaMod. MonaMod is basically um, like it says here, a general purpose .NET assembly modding base work. You probably won't be able to make out much what it does. Essentially, what it does is it takes some DLL files, patches patches those files based on modules and rule sets that you provide MonaMod, and outputs the patch DLL file, with which you can, you know, work, replace in the original game, um, really whatever you want. Um, this MonaMod has an example with Celeste. Even though Celeste is not a Unity game, at least as far as I know. Um, oh no, Celeste is a Unity game. Okay, never mind then. We have like a nice example patch here. Um, to show how it works. Let me zoom in on here a little. Basically, in order to patch something, um, we need um, we need to create a custom project, which will need to be named specifically. I'll show you how later. Um, Essentially, uh, you have to be in the namespace of the class, um, except you know you use the global patching, but this is some advanced stuff. It's easier just to put it in the same namespace. Um, then you define a class with the base class being the original class that you want to patch. You have to do this because so you can access all the visible members to you. um, then you want to edit um, some functionality. So you um, basically search out the original name of the function, um, append an oric, um, and then this uh, foot foot dash um, in front of it, and mark it with extern. So you don't have to define a body, but rather say this is from an external DLL. At the same time, you probably want to disable the pragma warning, because if you mark a function as extern, then C# expects that you actually have a DLL file loaded in unsafely, from which you take this external function. But monomode cheats a little bit here. And then you override your original function. And you can even call the original function in here, do stuff before, do stuff after. Um, yeah. Um, you'll also need, if you edit Unity stuff, you'll also need to copy uh, the Unity DLLs and stuff. Um, so yeah, how we're gonna do that, I'm gonna show you later. Um, let's see. All right. Afterwards, you're gonna build everything. You'll have your module file, then you patch your files, and you patch your game with those module files, and you're done. Um, so how are we gonna do that? Well, what we're gonna create here is we're gonna recreate my QStack mod. Why the QStack mod? Well, basically because um, how I designed the repository, how it is now, um, it doesn't, it didn't uh, like upload the solution file for the project, which made the whole, oh no, not the solution file, the project file, which made the whole project, the whole QStack mod unbuildable. So yeah, we're gonna recreate that today, maybe with some new insight. Um, this is really just an example. You can do whatever you want with this, but be careful. So first of all, what you're gonna need is Visual Studio. It doesn't matter which Visual Studio. It could be Visual Studio 2015, Visual Studio 2017. It could be any edition. It could be Community Edition, Professional Edition, Enterprise Edition, or even some preview like I'm using. I'm using Visual Studio 2019 preview. Um, and yeah, um, so how we're gonna start once we got uh, the Visual Studio ready? Um, well, we're gonna create a new project, and this project is gonna be a class library, a .NET Standard class library. Okay, in here, we need to follow a naming scheme, which is something like mod name, and then the assembly name we want to patch. In this case, this is going to be, let me show you, because this is a Unity game. We want to patch this one, assembly C#. Why exactly this one? Because all game code is handled in this file, all of it. This may change in the future. Maybe we're gonna outsource some logic, like for the modding API, to different DLLs. But the rule of thumb is for any Unity game, the game logic is stored either in the assembly C#, this is like 80% of cases, or inside the exe. But in case it's in the exe, you rarely have a managed folder because everything is shipped inside the exe. So yeah, we want to modify assembly C#, so we need to name it as such. Assembly C#. Alright. And then we need to append it with .mm, and that's it. How I got this? Well, did I do it wrong? Let's see. Oh yeah, I did it wrong. Sorry. It needs to be vice versa. First the name of the assembly and then the name of the module. So in which case we're gonna create the QStack mod. Doesn't give me an option to create the Git repository, so I'm gonna do that later. So we're gonna create the project, and we're gonna end up with a class here, which we're gonna delete because we don't need it. And I think we messed up. Yeah, we messed up. We don't need .NET framework, .NET standard. We need .NET framework. Let me just close solution. Bye. Let's start again. We need a class library, .NET Framework. There it is. Again, assembly C# QStack. This part, by the way, the QStack, everything in here you can name however you want. The framework, I think we need to leave this at 452, but I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see soon enough. Okay. Gonna delete the class, and now we're gonna open up the files in here. And we're gonna create a new folder in here, which we're gonna call libs. And in here, we're gonna copy some necessary files. First of all, we're gonna need the assembly C# file. And then we're gonna need the Unity engine file. We also need, I think we need the UI, but I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. But we definitely need the Unity engine. Let me actually check up. Maybe I can find it. It says we need the audio, but maybe we can avert that. We need the core module. There it is. Image conversion module, yeah. And the UI. If you start from 0, you don't need to put in any of those. At least until you actually need the files. If at some point Visual Studio screams at you because you didn't reference a certain DLL file, you can just look it up on the internet, and the Unity documentation gives you a pretty good hint on what file you need. Okay, so now we have those in here. We can import them. You should know your way around Visual Studio pretty well. Gonna add all of them. Go. All right. Now we have all references added. We don't have any warnings. We're gonna actually write a first write a mod. So essentially, in order to create, in this case, a custom modus, we need to know what a modus looks like. Now, I of course have um, the source code right here. I know what a modus needs and how a modus must look like. Um, Essentially, I'm gonna walk you through that now. There's some more stuff um, to modi. If you like want to know that as well, please just decompile the assembly C# and look for yourself. Um, I can't explain everything to you. Um, so we're gonna create a QStack modus, um, and the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna move this out of the namespace. We don't work with namespaces in TGP. Um, Now we're gonna make the modus the base class. This is not for patching. Well, it will be for patching, but we don't need to annotate anything for patching in here because everything we're writing here is added on top of all changes. So the first thing we're gonna need um, is a holder for the cards, and as you may know, cards are linked to moduses. So we're gonna create a list of card and call it item list. Actually, let's use my naming scheme here. All right. Then once we have that, we're gonna create a new awake, which is used by the mono behavior. If you are familiar with Unity development, you may know the awake function. Basically, modus is a subclass, has the base class mono behavior, so you can use all mono behavior classes in here, even update and stuff. So if you want to, I don't know, change the color of your cards, like a rainbow or something, you can put that in the update function and it will work. But for now, yeah, we don't need that. We're gonna call the base awake function first because we don't know what happens in there. Then we're gonna set the item capacity, which is gonna be 8. And then we're gonna set some separation, which is a vector. And this is these are some values I picked up from an existing modus. I think the Q or stack modus, I don't know. Double this complex card size x divided by 4.0. And this dot complex card size divided by 4f. And I may have done something wrong. Um, oh, there we go. We can probably do the same here. We can just, there we go. Basically what this tells us, tells the card, the modus is that all cards that are going to be added have this separation, which is basically the complex card size, which is, come on, let me show you, which is a vector. It's basically set in the card prefab, at least as far as I know, and we're gonna divide that by 4. So basically, we're gonna make it we're gonna make all new cards appear like a quarter down and left, down and right, I mean. All right. Then we're gonna set the color. The set color function takes just a normal color. I'm actually gonna copy this one because I can't be bothered to write the values. This is basically just orange, like an orange color. For reference, maybe I can show you that. I can show you that. Let me just grab it if I find it. This may take a little because I don't really know my way around. I think it was in. No, that was. This is. I think I can use that. But I'd rather show you. I think those are just items. Somewhere I had there's the original file somewhere, but essentially I can show you this. Basically this is one of the base images. The way the set color works is it executes a hue rotate to this, well not to this, but to the base image of the card, which basically calls it entirely different. And you can set the color using the color option here. So if you want like a split color in the middle, I wasn't able to figure this out back then, but I can figure it out now. If you want a split color, basically hue rotate this red to the first color you want to have, split it in the middle, hue rotate the wait, am I saying the right thing? Yeah, hue rotate the right side to whatever color you want, and then hue rotate back. Hue rotate them back, so you're left with like one red side and one other coded side, so that if you set your color in here, it actually hue rotates to your desired colors. You can do this with any part, just color them differently. You can do this really precise. Kind of ashamed that I didn't think of that myself. And then what I did was I set my own icons. For now, I'm gonna use the icon from the original again. So I'm just gonna download the original again. Gonna move the file in here, and we don't need this. Okay. Basically how this looks like is this. Someone else made this for me. Alright. So in order to set this icon now, we're writing a custom function which is set icon from path, define a path, and basically what we're setting here is we want to set the sprite. Now in my original implementation I set up like a custom file for this, but we can actually do everything in one. Or actually no, we're not going to do that. I'm gonna show you a proper coding technique. I'm gonna since most of the time you want to add multiple moduses and stuff, and you want to reuse code as much as you can, gonna move this into out of date namespace as well, and then we're gonna have two functions in here. First is gonna be load texture, it's gonna be public static, and it's gonna return the texture to the takes the path as parameter. Then we're gonna define resulting texture, text2d, the file bytes. Oop, nope. There, file exists. And we're gonna return null if it doesn't exist, because we're gonna handle all file stuff in here. What we can also do is this. Because, you know, return-oriented programming. Now we can do file equals file read all bytes and path. Keep in mind this loads the whole image into the RAM. So this shouldn't be anything too big. Yeah. Then text2d, new text2d with like a width and height of 2. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna load the texture, load the image, and it will return true or false whether it's successful or not. If you want to know where I know all these functions of, those are all available in the Unity documentation. Again, we can probably just there, and else is going to be return text2d. There we go. I'm gonna follow some optimizations here. Declaration and assignment, declaration and assignment. Boop. There we go. Nicely tidied up. Yeah. Okay. And the second function we're gonna need is actually load the sprite from a file. Because loading a texture isn't enough, we need to put this in the sprite. Load sprite from file. String path. sprite spr new sprite texture to 2D text load texture with a path. So you see we're gonna reuse our load texture function we wrote here. Creating a sprite, and this may like hit you like a truck at first, but we can really work for everything here. So at first we're gonna need the texture, which is stored in text. Then we're gonna define a new rectangle with the boundary 0, 0, text width, text height, and then the pivot, which is gonna be 0, 0. Or we can also write vector 2, 0. This works as well. And in the end, we're going to return the sprite. So yeah, this returns our like a sprite with our wanted texture now. So back to the QStack modus, and what we're going to need to do here, this solidex modus icon. Oh yeah, sprite, and then mod utils log from sprite, and then path, and then we're able to call this here. Set icon from path, qstack mod qstack.png. Essentially, what we're going to do then, this is some future thinking. Once we compile everything, we're going to move this folder inside of here, because every path you see here and you use in your game in your mod is relative to the exe file. So relative to this file. So qstackmod is a folder in here, and qstack.png is going to be inside that folder here, inside the qstackmod folder in here. And then we're gonna add some basic functions to make a modus work, because those are needed. First is going to be adding an item to the modus, and I see I'm adding unneeded spaces. It's going to take an item as parameter. First, a sanity check. And then, oh yeah, I remember we're making this linked list. And in here, you see we have a linked list now with the type card, and we want to add an item. Now, how do we make an item to a card? Well, there's a convenient function defined in the modus class, which is called makeCard. And it's going to take the item, the index, which is going to be this item list.count, and the sorting, which we're going to set to -1 because we have no sorting in our list. We add our items sequentially. And in the end, return true. So yeah, this adds the item to your inventory now. If you want to do special handling of certain items, you can do that in here. Next up, a sanity check function. If an item, or a card in this case, is retrievable. I'm gonna call it item. And how it works is, if the count is 0, return false. There is no items in the list, so you can't retrieve any items. Otherwise, return if this item is either the first item, or if the item is the last. So basically, we're comparing the item to the first and the last item in the sequence. If any of those are true, if any of those, no, sorry, we rewind a little. This returns the state of if the item is whether the first or the last item in the list. So yeah, like the queuestack modus, we can only retrieve items from the beginning or end of the list, of the inventory. So yeah, we can only retrieve those. Next up, pretty easy, a normal getter. I keep adding multiple spaces, which is gonna be an enumerable card get item list. I'm gonna return this item list because a linked list or any list has enumerable as base class. Easy as that. Oh, we can actually see this stuff now. Next, I'm gonna do this. Save and load. Just leave those as they are. Don't do anything with them, else it's gonna mess up the saving and loading, and you don't want that. Except there is a different load function we can use, and it's gonna take an item array. And what it's gonna do is it's gonna reinitialize the list. Oh, okay. Thought we could initialize count, but no, we can't. And now we're gonna loop through the items. And like that. we're gonna say items I, and sorting 1. Although we could say -1 again. This loads the items in given inventory again. I think this is necessary for modus switching. Oh wait, no it isn't. Huh, don't know why this is necessary. Next up. Get amount, which is just gonna return the current count of the list. Oh, this is public. And the last one is protected overwrite remove item from modus. And no, we're not going to use the default here. If retrievable item then remove this. Remove this and return true. Else return false. Or we can turn this around again and say if it's not retrievable, and do this. Clean code. I'm gonna make some like a quick check. We don't need um, the this qualifier, so whoop, quick optimization. All right, there we go. So this is basically our modus now. And we could leave it like that and compile everything, and it would probably work. But we would have no way of selecting this modus, because we still need to add this modus to the Sylladex. And this is where the interesting stuff happens. This is where we, for the first time, patch something. Now, so in order for us to be able to patch something, we need to add a reference to monomod. So what we're going to do is we're going to download monomod. And I see it's .NET 35. I know which classes are needed, so inside here we're gonna add, I think it was this and this. I think, although we could just do it the right way, and then clone monomod. This is using Git, by the way. If you want to do the same, you can just download the zip file of the repository and like unzip it in here. And we're gonna add the existing project. And we need this, if I remember correctly. right? Or is that the exact wrong one? I think this is the wrong one. Yep. Oh, no, this is the wrong one. It's a bit late. Um, I'm gonna. Oh, okay. It's probably gonna take a little. And it's probably crying that we. No. Gonna need to change our target framework as well, because this needs to match. Oh. What was that? Oh, okay. We also need to add this. Okay, there we go. Those two need to be inside. Then we can add some references, projects. Okay. All right. And now we're gonna patch a file. And the file we're gonna patch is called SolidX. It's a class in that we use for players. But we're not gonna just name it SolidX because that would violate our naming. We call it patch SolidX. And this falls into the patching again. Again, we need to move this to the base namespace. And then, like I said in the beginning, we need this to have the base class of the like the original base class. So like this. And now what I'm gonna do, this is some really annoying stuff. Essentially, um, how the Synodex is handled, we have some few functions we need to patch. I'm gonna show this off here. All right. Essentially, a Synodex has a list of what um, um, of what moduses are available, and essentially we want to add our own inside here. um, but we can't exactly just edit them inside the source file and then say, okay, that's it. No, we need to set them ourselves, so we're overriding the constructor. We can do that now. So the first thing we're going to do is do this, and then define two lists. And we're going to get an error here, because those aren't defined. Everything, we need to define everything ourselves that we want to use, because private stuff obviously is private, but we can still modify it. like this. So like this we can gain access on stuff. um, so we added our QStack now. This needs to be QStack as well because the images are loaded. Um, actually, no, not the images. I think, let me just check. Oh no, I'm doing a different handling. Okay, okay. uh, so yeah, the first thing is uh, the the constructor. Now we're not done yet. We need to annotate this function with monomod. With monomod constructor. Oops, there we go. This essentially tells monomod that this is going to be the constructor of this class. So we're overriding it. Next up, like we saw in the example, we want to override um, the start function. So private extern auric start. Like it said, we need to prepend. Oh, extern void start. We need to prepend function names with auric so we can still use them. And like it says here that there that it's marked that it's marked as external but has no DLL import, which is stupid because there's not going to be a DLL import. And then we're going to define our own start function, which is going to be used in place of auric start. Essentially, what we need to do is we need to modify something inside the start function. Not the entire function, but rather just a part inside. But we can't do that. We need to overwrite the whole thing. So what we're gonna do is, or what I did is, I copied everything from the Solidex start function. I'm gonna do the same here. So just bear with me. Just gonna look it out. Oh, I can't search. It's unfortunate. But I found the file. There we go. Okay, and it's screaming at us because we have a lot of stuff that isn't used. Alright. So we're just gonna... Everything we see in red here, we need to add ourselves. It's private. Player name, which is a string. Oh, I see. We actually need the first pass. This is rare. This doesn't happen often. but we're gonna give it what it needs. There we go. um, I wonder where it got the horizontal wrap mode from. Oh yeah, I know. I probably know why. Um, let's see. There we go. Text rendering. Okay. Uh, yeah. Essentially, when we get errors like this, hover over them, and then it says you must add a reference, and it's telling you we need the rendering module. Unity, text rendering module copy, libs, inside here. Okay. Add reference, and done. And that's the whole start function. Now this is the original start function. We need we need to change something about that though, because we want to include our own modus. um, Essentially, if the modus is queue stack, we want to handle it entirely different. And the way we're going to do it is like this. We're going to create a new image. Oop. Object, instantiate image, this modus switch option, this modus switch option, parent, oh, transform parent. Which basically tells it we want the original switch option, like this one. Like this, most of the code is actually janked from this, but with our own stuff. So actually, let me just fast forward and then explain. Yep. Uh, yeah. um, there we go. And in the end, we need to add continue because we don't want this code to execute if the modus is QStack. All right. Oh, there we go. This is everything needed in here. So yeah. Next up, we need to patch the set modus function because you know this doesn't work with uh, this doesn't work with what we need either. So again, best thing you're gonna do is you're gonna look it up in the source code again and look how it's done, and then only patch what you need. For example, The original has a switch case for the modus. So again, this is the original function. And we're gonna new void. Like a lot of the time, you will basically just modify code that's already been written. And that's everything to it. Case stack, and this is really this has been written already, but you know. And it's gonna yell at us again because we don't have modus object. Modus object is game object, like I thought. Private game object modus object. Add component, and what we're doing now is essentially inside oh god, it's late. Inside the modus object, we are adding a behavior, which is the modus class, because like we said, a modus is basically just a Unity behavior, and we're gonna just add that here. Stack is filo modus break. Capture modus, and this is really just a lot of typing. No, don't forget the breaks. This is hashmap modus. Tree, capture modus, modus object, add component, and tree modus. And case Q, well, which is the same as default, because if there's no other capture modus, it's just gonna fall back to the default, which is this one, which is the FIFO modus. Okay, this is basically the entire function. Only thing left is we have a modus name, which we need to set again. Private string modus name and if play sound effect clip switch, which is another private sound effect. Let me see. Private audio clip, and for that we're gonna need yet another. We're gonna need the audio module. what was the name? Clip switch, okay. There we go. And then we can play the sound effect as well. Okay, this is basically the entire function, and what we just need to do in here is add on handling. So yeah, our own handling in the same style, capture modus, modus object, and then queue stack modus. And you're gonna see it works just like a charm. We don't need to do anything janky or something. We can just reference it like that. And the last function we need to modify to make this complete is the void add modus. And in here we can make use of a normal if. Because if modus qstack, then use our own handling, and if not, just use the original function. That's the beauty of monomod. I'm gonna copy and paste this code again. Essentially, this loads in our sprite, so we can like show it in the UI. We're adding this to our moduses. Here we instantiating like our image again, like we did in here. Like we're essentially doing exactly what's being done in here. Yeah, this is I think this is used when you switch to a different modus. So it gets added to the selectable list. Let me just drink something. All right. And I believe that's everything. Now everything left to do is we're gonna disable some copy locals because we don't need those. And we also don't need this one. We don't want the game. But we do want monomod. Okay. So essentially, if we should be able to build this now. Okay. And now we have no, we don't. It says we can't use card. It doesn't show me the error here. But I guess I replace card with modus.card. Oops. There we go. And this should... No? Huh, weird. It's giving off an error. I wonder why. Let me just unload. And then reload the project again. Maybe my IDE got a little worked up. Hmm. It doesn't like me building this right now. Oh, build failed. Saying that this all can't be found. Is this really because... No. I wonder why. Let me try and debug this. Um, oh, okay. Essentially because we're running on a different .NET framework. Okay, there we go. we can't build on 3.5. So yeah, um, and we end up with this. um, so yeah, if you want to make TGP mods, um, your target framework is going to be 4.5. Alright, and after compiling, like you need to compile your module, you're going to end up with this. These are all your needed files. Essentially, well, the only needed files are this and this and this. So in order to mod your game now, everything you gotta do, just gonna copy paste this. So I have a clean installation. You're just gonna open up the data, manage folder, copy in your module file. Let's see. I think you need to copy and paste everything in here, except the PDB files. You don't need the PDB files. Copy those files in here as well. And now what you want to do is drag the file you want to have patched onto monomod. In this case, this is the assembly C#DLL. Then it's gonna read the mod, patching, done. And it's gonna print out these files, monomodded. So what you can do is you can delete your module file now, rename the original assembly C#. I'm gonna make it a back file now and rename the monomodded file to the assembly C#. And that's it. You have now successfully modded your game. So if you load in the game now, and it's not going to be in here because we didn't patch this. Okay, but it's going to be in. Oh no, it's not because we forgot to add something. We need to still copy this in here. Now we should be able to. Just rushing through here. Okay, there we go. Now we can eject, and we have our QStack mod. Yeah, essentially there's some things going wrong right now. But this is just a proof of concept anyways. So yeah, this is basically the entire walkthrough of making a mod. um, I don't know why it didn't work now. Probably because I messed something up in here. But yeah, just be careful with what you write and stuff. Essentially, yeah, this is how you mod the game at the current state. Of course, there's the modding API coming up, which is gonna make modding a lot easier. Modding is gonna be kind of like scripting soon. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed this and this helped you a little bit in the thought process of creating a mod. To get to the uh, source class, you need to decompile the game yourself. I won't help you with that because if you can't do that, then you probably shouldn't even touch monomod or anything. But yeah, if you feel like okay, if you feel like but if you're feeling like yeah, I actually understood this and I can well build upon this, then feel free to. Um, we're happy to see new mods every time. So yeah, I think this wraps up everything for now. So I thank you for watching, and yeah, if you have questions, just put them in the modding channel on the TGP Discord. Alright, see ya, bye bye.